Hello, my good people. Good morning and afternoon. Today is a Sunday, August 2026. I think it is the 7th or the 8th, I'm not sure, but it's the first weekend of August. Now, I've got news to share with you people. I learned about the passing of my aunt, Henrietta Nalongo Ddungu, a personal friend to my mom many years ago. She passed away in 2021, is it? To be exact. And I didn't know about this. Honestly, I did not know. Yesterday, I was on my phone checking, Then I land on A+. The obituary, something like that. They put up, like, it's a funeral service company in Uganda, which deals with send-off. In fact, that business was part of what my mom would set up as a template in 1998. My mom pre-planned her funeral together with her, because she was palliative care at home, everything. And I'm happy to see that now today it's a new take on sending off loved ones, because previously it used to be a very, very sad ordeal, It was haunting, Let me tell you the fact. So now I'm checking through, I'm seeing pictures, blah, 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 rest in peace, blah, 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 okay. Then I land on a picture of Auntie Henrietta, and I read the obituary, and I'm like, no way. It really, really shook me to the core. And of course, I went into my archives. and I have pictures in there many years ago. And for me, I'm so fortunate that we took so many pictures back in the day. We had a camera, an Olympus camera, so there's always something to follow up with. I'm not talking about things that are not there. Now, this is it. Let's talk, people. Many years ago, I'm talking of the 70s, when my mom goes back to study. I've always told you this. She went to the East African Civil Service College in Nairobi, Kenya. And many of you might not know, when they formed the East African Community, a federation of countries, Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania, a lot of things were done administratively differently. Education, blah, 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 blah. So, my mom is coming of age. She gets married in 1972, the wedding of the year. She was very young, you know that. I've always told you that. She was only 16. And that very year, I was born. Subsequently, my siblings as well, my sister was born in 1976. My other sister was born in 1979, plus our brother, the last born, who passed away, was born in 1981. Let's go back. My mom returns back to study. She had to because my dad was highly educated. And the situation was that as she settles into her marital home, I will show you the picture of the marital home, the one my mom moved in at 16. There were 3 houses in one, bungalows, and one The other ones were for rent later on. You know, people who know where we used to stay. An exclusive enclave. An enclave. Do you know what an enclave is? That you only go there when you are the one you are the one who stays there. See, one drive. The Chanda Drive. In fact, that road should be named after my dad. The road going towards Homes Darling. Fetwa Senda. That road was off the road, Tula Road, whatever the road it was. But anyway, my mom begins studying in Nairobi, flying every week back and forth. And that's how the friendship with Auntie Henrietta, they meet up. She was at the time now working in the East African Airways when it was formed. Because previously there was the British Overseas Airline Company, BOSC, which used to fly in all the 3 East African countries. So there was no Uganda Airlines. Uganda Airlines, Jaruvanyuma, or Kenya Airways, or Tanzania Airways. All those came later. When they break up this overseas thing of the British Airways and everything, they formed the East African Airways. Mwemuliba Francis Babu, Captain Francis Babu. By then they were young pilots. Bonanga very best in Kenya. So subsequently, she begins a career in airline. However, that is going to bring her in I would say, you know, a sphere of influence. Kakati, those who know Kampala very well, do you know where Kampala Casino is? Kampala Casino, up there, All Saints Church. Awalinga Nita Cinema. The cinema, remember the cinema? Nita Cinema, I think it was called. Now, along that road, going up, there's a building called Airline House. I think the name has changed. The name has changed. But it was a building that had all the offices of the airlines in one building. The one next to the Kampala Casino. Aongawa Kora. I can vividly remember that very well. I was a kid in the 70s. In fact, many years later, when I was in my gaming Paramount Investments.
There he is.
Yes, my friend, how are you?
Oh, yeah, all right.
Good, yeah, thank you. You're finished?
Finished, coming off.
Nice afternoon.
Oh, you too.
All right, see you in the week.
Yeah.
Oh, okay then. So, Airline House, I think that is where today the Kenya Airways, there was Sabena, Brussels, there was lots of airlines. Travel agents and everything. That was the center. Now she would leave East African Airways when it is defunct. The collapse of the East African community meant that everything had to be dissolved. Everything was over. And then that would launch her into going into business personally, setting up jet tours and travel. So when my mom finishes her studies in 78, 79, of course now the political climate in Uganda was changing, and she didn't straight away go into work, because remember when we had to go to exile, went back to Kenya for some time, then we would come back in the 1980, we came back after the elections. Nabagamba elections in 1980 zalimba mzee baffe. Balina Paulo Mwanga, balina Boito Joko, balina bani bonna. You know, you people don't know these things. That is Auntie. Kati olwagenda kugula offices ku Lumu Street, Bank of Baroda, Barclays Bank, in the corner. That was the offices of Jet Tours. That is what is going to launch her into becoming very, very successful. Aha. Now, I haven't told you about the husband, Mr. Roger Ddungu, who was a personal friend to my dad. Balibona Mukofi. Uncle Roger's Ddungu, from what I've gathered, he later on, like in his years now, when Uganda Olympic Committee, which organizes Yalimu sports, Yalimu, even I think up to today, if I'm not so sure, but I'll check with, I'm going to check with the son. Zemba story young. Akati, in 1972, when my dad resigns or retires from Mango Growers Cooperative Union, are you with me? Together with the Sir Gordon Wavaah, they set up spear touring and travel. Everything happened in sync. Kakati, you can say, you can argue, or like people would say, there was Africanization of the economy, people, it was up for grabs. People were grabbing things, No. You have to be enterprising and start up something. But there was a very big vacuum left for people to take on whatever they needed to take on. They set up spear touring and travel. Spear motors, Spear House. Your name, yeah, Uncle Gordon maintained the name, but my dad, together with their partnership, they didn't go far with it, but it was laying the foundation that later would open doors to the famous one, Hippo Tours and Travel. I heard it was Mr. Galiwango. In fact, I went to school. No, Mr. Gochalia. I went to school with his children. Francis Gochalia. She was my classmate in Buganda Road in the 80s. I don't know where she is. I would love to see her again. Never brother be. But that is all back in the 70s, people. We are still in the 70s. So, Uncle Roger's Ddungu, from what I remember, when my dad was in business, when he was in coffee business, coffee, mafuta mingi, yaina trailer. Trailers is a Mercedes Benz. We in a connection with Wavamono because Wavamono will take on a franchise to supply those vehicles, those Mercedes Benz trucks, Mercedes Benz cars, and everything. So there was a lot of working together. Do you get what I mean? See outsider. But that would launch Auntie Nalongo into business. That when it came to the 80s, Jet Tours and Travel, anybody who wanted to travel, that was the place to be. To the point that even she was the sole British Airways. If you know British Airways, back in the day, it used to fly. It was the only reliable airline. Because remember when East African community broke up in the 70s, they launched Uganda Airlines. Iranga bebagirimu. Mufuna bulungi nnyo ye Auntie Nalongo gwenzijukira. Kati bagenda okufuna omukwano ogw'amaanyi ennyo ne maama wange. We were family to the point that I remember sometime in the 80s when the war began, the Museveni war and the guerrilla war, we were a chebando batubba, they ravaged our house. They robbed us, burnt almost half the house and everything. The whole point, they wanted to kill my dad. Yennababulia story, the near assassination attempt on my dad. Twabeerako emuyenga ewaani ewa Mr. Ddungu, the Ddungu family, baatu hosting ewaabwe for about a month, I think. We must have stayed there for almost a month before we moved into Masse Hotel, Ewandegeya Shell petrol station where Makerere High was. Imagine I was studying at Makerere High. Now people even don't know that at one point we stayed in that hotel. Chevand wasn't safe, and they had to repair the house, they had to renovate it again, they had to do it up and all that. Twayita mu bintu bingi nnyo, twayita mu bizibu bingi nnyo. And kati Uncle Rogers oyo ng'alina ne petrol station e Wandegeya. Ebyo temubimanyi. Petrol stations y'omu ku bannayuganda abasooka okuba ne petrol stations eziri private. Before they used to be Agipu, Caltex, Shell, those are international, whatever you call them, companies. Mufuna bulungi nnyo. Wandegeya opposite veterinary, Ministry of Animal Husbandry and something. Petrol station yali awo. Wandegeya ngodda bwoti towards Mulago. Yena ne petrol station endala Kansanga Road, is it Kansanga? Nendala Wandegeya awo. Kye nabagamba nti my dad yalina shares mu Uganda Petroleum Company, UPET. Mujimanyi, have you heard of UPET? Kati today you're talking about Starbucks. Naye waaliwo gye bayitanga UPET. Ya government. Era tata wange yali one of the big stakeholders. Nabagamba nti my dad yalina shares mu Lake Victoria Bottling Company. Yakolanga gundi Pepsi Cola. Pepsi Cola was the only soft drink in Uganda. Yalina shares mu Lake Victoria Hotel. Entebbe weekyaliyo simanyi. Kakati ne shares, majority, big shares. Wakati Obote yaleeta ekintu kino kyali bwe kiti temwakimanya. Because of what had happened, yali abbi akalulu. And I think on the advice of Paulo Mwanga, n'amugamba nti the billionaire elites, the elites who had put money on the line, abaruwadinge. Kakati bw'okwaruwadinga ne baleeta ebyo ebintu ebyo ebya, it was 49%, 51% government shareholdings. Mukitegeera, shareholding companies, everything to do with Uganda was a shareholding. Subsidiaries. Kati ne bayita n'ebyo bigundi ebyo byonna ebyo bya kati tudde mu biyitaka agencies, parastatals. Later on they would become non-performing assets. Museveni abitunde. Our story. There's a very big story. Right now, I'm just jumping here and there. I'm giving you the full picture of what I'm talking about. Until we musoma what I've posted, until she was one of the most successful businesswomen in Kampala, minus being that the husband was also a billionaire. Then you know what I'm talking about. You get the picture. Kati, my mom in the 80s enters into her career. Entebbe Road, Nkrumah Road, Nasa Road. You cross from one road to another, then you go up to the very end of Nkrumah. We were in our offices. Zamami. Uganda Development Corporation, Hatchery Division, Spring Valley Farms, Roger Mukasa, yali mu Coffee Marketing Board. Bamujjeko ba chairman, bawadde Oito Joko, tuli mu 81, 82, 83 bagenda okutta Oito Joko, ebintu byako okukyuka. I'm fine, sister. Okay. So, that is 81, 82, 83. So my mom is working. Era Benz, ya mami. Bali kankubulire bali obulamu. Nze nali mwana muto nenga negomba ba mama bange. Ne basenga bange. The things they were doing and they were young. They were young. My mom was 26, 27. Wakati your auntie Gundi, their age difference is 3 years. Because my mom, she's born in 1954. Auntie Nalongo was born in 1951. So you can see how the gap is very narrow. Only 3 years is the gap. To the 80s. Kakati, what you people don't know, there was a mass exodus of Ugandans. People going to exile, Chengamba, exodus, people were leaving. Remember, the institutions and everything, during Amini's regime, at the government, they choose, Utaruta, they say, Utaram 7, the war, the guerrilla war. So, a lot of middle-class people, middle-class Ugandans began to leave. Kakati, how were they living? They had to find a way. Kakati, British Airlines yasomba abantu jemulabeeye ennyonyi to the point that she managed to acquire a license. She was the sole person selling tickets. British Airways, Jaina Nagondi, like HQ officers. BA, Gaya Zirinanga, Ziri Muchi, Mu jet tours and travel. Remember, I've told you about Airline House, where all the airlines had to have their offices. British Airways. If you can negotiate a partnership deal with BA, and at the time it was the topmost flyer. Remember that we used to have weekly flights, is it fortnight flights? In the way you think it is today until the airport was this and that. We are gaggawalida. What I remember, they used to send me to that office. Lumu Street. Yeah. Weekends, sometimes we would go to the office. Hey, Patrick, mugende wa? Ewa Auntie Nalongo muje tickets. Because, of course, Uganda Development Corporation they used to have trips. They used to travel abroad to Elekeraba and Kutsawe, Waving Bay. We tell you never can't. Our bagenzi tebagenda kuda, bagenda mu exile. So much was happening in the 80s. So in the middle of all that was Auntie Nalongo. Yajanga na waka olusi, they have unfinished business, they have to do things, paperwork, office work, this. So by 1985, government echuka. My mom would resign. She would resign, and of course things would take another different direction. Yeah, Auntie Nalongo, from what I remember, in fact, it is very surprising that my mom never came to London. And my mom never flew at all. She had flown East Africa, Kenya, Uganda, but she could afford. When I remember Auntie Nalongo yakomangawo n'ebintu ebirungi n'abituleetera awaka binabagamba suitcases ezajjanga, netira kino, things like that. But anyway, 85, the government changes. So what really was bringing them together was now going to be null and void. nga kati nze nziramu okulaba Auntie Nalongo oyo mu 1996, 1997, 1998. How? When my mom fell sick, it sent shockwaves. It sent shockwaves in Kampala. People were shocked. Remember in 1990, my dad had passed away. My dad took ill at 40, very young. Huh? And his passing, my mom becomes a widow at 33. A widow. Mukazi mulungi nnyo mama wange. In fact, we were advising her to get a man. At night, if you know musajja, okuzaaba na bitabyo no. My mom never did that. But there were many suitors who would have wanted to marry my mom at that age. So in 1996, I returned from Kenya. So when I returned, my mom is poorly, she's sick, you know that. What I remember vividly was Auntie Nalongo coming to visit my mom almost on a weekly basis. Kakati ngabasaba, they would hold prayer meetings at home. Nga she comes with other people from the church, but we would not partake, but they would sit like formally, like people like worried about something, praying over something. And she would do that for 2 years. Katinze, what I'm finding out now from reading, that she had committed her life to Jesus Christ. Hey! And she becomes a senior pastor in a Miracle Center wa Kayanja. I have not given you the story of Pastor Kayanja. Muchimanyi naliko mu Miracle Center nga nyimba 1994. Miracle Center ngetandika ya Kayanja. Ngolodi mu Scripture Union e Makere zentandika Scripture Union in high school. Hey, but of course I went to Kenya, so that ended there. So, her coming round at that time was, in fact, Pastor Kayanja says that in his speech during the burial, acknowledging the fact that she contributed a lot in helping securing travel arrangements and tickets for many of the evangelicals. She was rich. Anyway, that is 97, 98, 99. And from what I remember vividly, are you with me? Was the last days of my mom, when my mom was very, very sick. Auntie Nalongo yajja. I remember she was even dressed in white. Yeah. And they prayed for my mom. My mom was very, very weak. And I remember we had to carry my mom shoulder to shoulder to bring her to the sitting room. She was very weak. Namusabida. And that was the last image or picture I have of the friendship they had together. Sinababulira baana abalongo abo nabaali baana bato in the 80s. I'm going to look for the brother. Hey, bile bintu biwanvu nnyo. Hakati my mom passes away, but unfortunately she did not attend the funeral of my mom. Most probably she had traveled, because she used to travel a lot, London and everything. I think she had traveled. She would have been there. She would have been there. And then everything went on the down low. What is the lesson here? The lesson is simple. nti families zibeeramu ebintu bingi nnyo. Kati bamaama baffe baali bato ne babeera guided by the events of the day. The events of the day. That is it. I'm very, very much touched, humbled, but I'm filled with memories. Nga nzija mu office ya Auntie Nalongo awo ku Lumu Street ng'erabika bulungi nnyo ng'erimu ne air conditioning. You're talking of the 80s, people. Mulina essimu ziri ku mmeeza. Of course, in my mom's office it was the same thing, beehive of telex, telefax, byonna. She was a company secretary. She was dealing with communication most of the times. Telegram yazze. Kakati sinababuulira kino. Let me tell you this one, the last one. When people began leaving Uganda, baali tebalina any knowledge on how the travel itinerary works. Bannayuganda bengamba, in fact, abasajja bonna baagendanga Sweden, nabiwuliranga awo Sweden, Denmark, Scandinavian countries. Kati nga tebalina show money, kati mbabuulira ebintu. You know what show money is? Zaalinga $2,000 ziwalagangayo ku embassy, the British. We used to have a British High Commission. Then we used to have a British Embassy. I don't know if people you remember that. British High Commission, British Embassy. How does it work? I'll find out. But we had along Parliamentary Avenue, the American Embassy. So you had to buy your travel ticket and also present evidence of show money, cash. Then they would give you travel. Visa, the sticker thing, wherever you bring paper and all that. At Uganda. And being that she was one of the Ugandans at the time who were more familiar with traveling and having a legitimate business, kati nechireta idea eya Forex Bureau. In fact, I'm so surprised that the first Forex Bureau was right around the corner next to Jet Tours. Mujimanyi first Forex Bureau in Uganda? Aina inanyeniyo Mr. Bomboka. I will give you that story as well. Foreign exchange back in the day was on regulation. You had to apply from Bank of Uganda, and that gave rise to the Chibanda Boys. But Chibanda Boys used to be behind Greenland Towers. That corridor be in between Virimba Anko Bange. Or bagenda kukwatagana n'abawala abakolanga mu Uganda Commercial Bank. Chibanda Boys. Nabo baaliwo be basooka e Japan. People, these things need to be documented. Mulabe how everything was beginning to unfold. Uganda etandika okukyuka, tuvudde mu shock and awe. Olutalo lwa 1981 to 85 shock doctrine, Chicago Boys. Mubimanyi ebintu byenjagalako ebya Chicago Boys. You don't know stuff, people. I'm telling you. But anyway, let's continue. Show money. Nga bannayuganda tebalina sente zibayiraga $1 kati ng'abayamba ne ku kisaawe. Nze nawerekera abantu bangi nnyo ku kisaawe. Almost every weekend we used to go to the airport. My aunties, my uncles, bonna bajja London, byonna nga yabayamba. Mugende wa Nalongo, Nalongo. It was very, very famous. Yeah, that's the story there, people. So you can understand what So when I gave you the story of my mom, the greatest. My mother, the greatest mom. Yali mu bintu bingi nnyo. Sinnababulya Hanifa and brothers, the Dubai Exodus. In fact, bonna abasinga balina mu Europe wano bali mu America. Abawala abasooka ogenda Dubai, sente ng'eri Dubai eringa mazzi. Nga tebabeera na sente, baavu, beewola, bakola ki naye ng'abayamba. That's 1987, 88, that was the wave. So there have been subsequent waves, but determined by the stakeholders or what is really going on within the country. Mufuna bulungi nnyo. This is part 1. Part 2 is coming. Rest in peace, Auntie Nalongo. It was always a pleasure knowing you. Very, very nice, beautiful wife to Uncle Rogers Ddungu. Ngena kunonya Uncle Rogers Ddungu. He was a personal friend of my dad. Bali bonna nabagagga, the billionaire elites, is still around. Mufuna bulungi. Have a nice Sunday, people. We shall continue this conversation. Temumanyi bintu bingi nnyo bantu mmwe mwaze era nina kutula wansi ndowooza byonna ntandika obi. Much of what we're talking about, I've always kept record of it. Naye nga bingi nnyo ebyalingawo. Okidoki.